Hello, everyone. This is Sarah from IO Planner Pro, and we are so excited to be going live with our very first AP Pro collective webinar. And today our guest is Renée Dalo. So Renée and I, oh gosh, I've known Renée for years and years and years. She actually was one of the very first planners or part of the beta group that started working with IO Planner many, many years ago. But she is also just a advocate of supporting this community to really build a business that drives revenue, building a business that supports the life that we want when we started a business, which is why we are super excited to have her with us today and kind of talk about what it means to go from a hobbyist to a CEO within your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So just so everybody's aware, this will be emailed out to everybody after the event. We will also have a link that we will share with the registrants for finding it on our marketing website. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Renée to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. Everyone who's here live, will you tell me in the chat where you're listening in from? I usually am in Los Angeles, but right now I'm in Greenville, North Carolina. I know, I'm all over the place. I'm literally all over the map. And I always like to know where we're coming in for, if it's the US or elsewhere, just so Detroit, San Diego, Newton, Newton. It's Newton, right? Not Newtown, Connecticut, Scottsdale, Arizona, Omaha, Nebraska. My goodness, everywhere. Connecticut. Tanya's from Connecticut. Belgium. See, that's why I ask. Belgium. Amazing. And is it Davy? Hi. It's so good to see you all. Thanks for being here. I know that in the States anyway, it's the day after a holiday weekend. So thanks for being on your computer. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Amazing. Keep telling me in the chat where you're from. We're going to get into it, you guys. So when Sarah asked me to do this presentation, she said, the title is Event Planning is a Career, Not a Hobby. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Because for me, it was a hobby before it was a career. And then really quickly, once I made the choice, right, that I was no longer going to treat my hobby as a hobby, but make it a career, things started happening for me pretty quickly. So I'm excited to sort of share my overall journey with you. Sarah, as she said, I was an original IO planner, like literally since 2015, I've been an IO planner. But I've been a wedding planner for 13 years with my own business. But prior to that, I was the friend in every friend group who planned the events. Like, if that's any of you, please tell me in the chat. Like, if you can relate to being the friend who hosted the parties or planned the birthdays or planned the Oscar parties, or maybe you're the person that now that your friends, maybe you're starting to get engaged, that they're like, well, you can help, of course, right? That was me before I opened my business, Moxie Bright Events. I'm also a certified life coach, which might sound like, how'd that happen? That was a pandemic choice. But also, when you've been a wedding planner for as long as I have, there is a part of your job, everyone's job, of every wedding pro's job, I think, that has an emotional component to it. Like, you start sort of having to learn how to deal with other people's emotional lives and family lives. So for me, it wasn't so much of a jump. And then I'm also an international keynote speaker. I've been speaking in the wedding industry and elsewhere since 2016. So not very much time had passed once I started my business in earnest, where people started asking me to speak about it, which is important. And we'll talk about that later. IO planner, of course, and then visibility and confidence coach. And if you're wondering what that is or why that is, I'll answer it right here. So I was kind of going down memory lane when I started to put together these slides a couple of weeks ago. And I went back into my Moxie Bright Events Instagram account, which is largely dormant now because I don't plan anymore. In fact, my last wedding is this year. But back in 2017, if you read this post, you'll see. In Los Angeles, IO Planner was a sponsor of this event called The Cream. It was like the cream of the crop, right? And someone at IO Planner had emailed me saying, can we get a photo of you? We're gonna put you on a display as an IO planner. And I was like, oh, of course, like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. And so I sent this, which at the time was my headshot. Look how fresh and young I look. And when I got to the event, you can probably tell by the hand, these were very large posters and they were all over the wall. So when I walked into the event, I was like confronted by many, 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 many pictures of my own face, and under the umbrella of a confident planner. And I was like, oh, I'm going to crawl into my skin. What is this? I thought they meant they were going to pick like a wall of little poster of my face. And it was a big lesson for me at the time in confidence and visibility and like owning it, right? Because I couldn't walk around the event being like, oh, that's not really me. I had to walk around the event being like, hell yeah, I'm an aisle planner. Look at my face on the wall. And it wasn't just my face, to be honest. There were like 10 of us. But when I was looking back at like my history with aisle planner and in the wedding community, I'm like, yeah, that was one of the first times that I was like, oh, I'm on the wall, right? Like that's a different level of visibility. That's a different sort of rising up to like meet the moment, right? And that is one of the things that I think has really built my wedding planning business, and how it built so quickly is that I was sort of willing to put my hand up and say, yeah, of course, let's talk about it. Or yes, you can use me in this. You can use me as decoration. But aisle planner to me has always been such a supporter of the community. And that is one of the reasons that I've been with aisle planner for so long. So for those of you who are here, I want you to tell me in the chat, please. And if none of these fit you, please tell me what does suit you. Quick show of hands or type in the chat. How many of you here are thinking about becoming a planner? So you haven't yet launched? Or how many of you are in years 1 to 2? Or how many of you are planning part-time? Or how many of you have a pretty good calendar, but you're still not full-time? Like, please tell me in the comments, because I want to make sure that we are speaking to what is necessary for you right now. And I know for me, as I said, I started as a hobbyist, right? I planned all of my friends' weddings, literally for free, or for, in one notable case, in exchange for a couch, a Crate and Barrel couch, which was really a high and low point for me, because I was like, I probably could have charged a couple grand for this. But by the time when I decided, okay, I'm launching Moxie Bright Events and I'm doing it and I'm launching a website, everyone in the chat's gonna be like, shut up. I launched my website on April 1st, and I executed my first wedding April 7th. So 6 days after I launched my website, I had a client, which never happens and is still wild to think about. But it is because I networked my little buns off, and I knew other wedding planners who needed help or who were getting these inquiries. And one in particular, my friend Liz, got an inquiry for a client who was like, oh my God, we're freaking out. We have no money and we need help. And are you available this Saturday? And she's like, I'm not, but Renee is, because she knew I had just launched a website and was like hungry for it. I met this couple at Starbucks. They handed me a stranger, by the way, $600 cash, and said, oh, by the way, can you also do the flowers? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we don't have anyone to do flowers, but we have another $500 for flowers. Can you go to the flower mart and do flowers? And I said, yes, because bananas. Because honestly, at that point in time, I was hungry to prove myself. And I was like, I'm not a florist, but I can probably figure it out. They had little bud vases and I had Moxie. And I went down to the flower mart in LA. Granted, Natalia, what year was this? 2013. So like, were they beautiful flowers? No, they were carnations and a couple of tulips and stock and a lot of baby's breath, right? Baby's breath was in back then. But honestly, like, did I charge for labor? No, because there was no money left. But myself and my friend Christy, who was a costume designer who had an artistic eye, I was like, hey, you want to be my assistant for the day? And she was like, yes. And I was like, let's go. And Christy then became my assistant for the next decade. Because we just baptism by fire, right? We just sort of did it. Okay, I love these answers. Full-time, second year. I am the executive assistant for a planner of 16 years. Nice. We have new gals joining our team who dream of going full-time. Great. 16 years, Andrea. 26 years. Hi, Natalie. Transitioned to full-time this year. Been planning since 2022. 2 years planning full-time, but still working a full-time job. Yeah, Amanda, that's so common. I want to normalize that for everyone listening. Like, what happened to me is exceedingly rare. And then what ended up happening past that moment in time of that very first wedding was that I was like, well, At the time, I owned a dog walking business, which doesn't sound like a real job, but in Los Angeles, it very much is a very lucrative job. And I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. So let me get ready to sell that business so I can go full-time with wedding planning. So I did both for about 6 months. And then I was able to sell my previous business to go full-time wedding planning. And I made all the mistakes that are possible to make. I took clients I shouldn't have. I worked well below what was, market price at the time. I was just trying to catch up to what I thought was like this perception of like where other people were in my industry. And so I'm so happy that I get to do this talk today because like I did all the mistakes. Like everything I'm about to tell you not to do, I'm telling you because I did it. I did it all. Some of it I survived and some of it is like, we'll see. Oh, Mandy, you're brand new. Girl, welcome and get good shoes. Okay. The biggest lie about event planning that I have seen over the last 13 years is this. Because I planned my own wedding, I can start a planning business. And this is me on my wedding day in 2013, having already planned other people's weddings. And I still had the thought of like, do I think I could do this? Because here's the thing, loving your own wedding and loving the feeling that you had on your wedding day is a completely separate feeling from being a planner, executing a large event, and the kind of pride that you get with that is a completely different feeling than you got on your wedding day. Anyone in the chat who's married, tell me if you agree. On your wedding day, you are the center of attention, okay? And it's all of your beautiful thoughts and dreams that hopefully have come to fruition, you and your partner, of course, right? But to own and operate a successful wedding planning business, you actually have to take all of the good feelings you had on your own wedding day and wish that for your client, and then also kind of remain a little bit invisible. As a wedding planner, if you're good, you're not the center of attention. You're not part of it in the way that you absolutely were on your wedding day. So anytime someone comes to me, especially for one-on-one coaching, and they're like, my wedding was beautiful, now I want to plan weddings, I always have to say like, but are you sure you're in it for the right reason? Because if you're trying to recreate the beautiful feeling you had on your own wedding day, I regret to inform you, you have a lovely feeling when you execute something to almost perfection on a wedding day, because I don't actually believe there's something as 100% perfection. It's a lovely, amazing, life, affirming feeling, but it is not the same as a wedding day. And if you had a wedding that was successful, beautiful, all the things, you likely had help. So stepping into the shoes of someone who wants to run a successful business, your beautiful wedding does not equate to a successful business. And I think that is the mindset that is most damaging as people get into business, because what they're trying to do, and I've seen this a lot with very novice planners, is they're trying to recreate the feeling or the aesthetic of their own day for someone else. And that doesn't really compute. So this is the thing that I think most people get in the weeds about. And I know I did as well when I started, okay? What we think we need when we start a wedding planning business is a perfect business name and logo. Trust me, that name, Moxie Bright Events, if I could go back in time, you know what I would call it? Renée Dalo Events. Because eventually, quickly, most people just knew me as Renée Dalo. Very few people were like, oh yeah, Moxie Bright. It just became me. Now, granted, when I opened my business, I was freshly minted Renée Dalo. That name did not feel like my name yet. And so that's why I didn't choose it. Plus, I thought, well, one day I might want to sell this business. I'm going to give it a name that's not my name. And for those two things, I still stand by it. However, the belaboring of over the name and the weeks that I spent, it wasn't really worth it in the end. And the logo, if I show you, I couldn't even find a graphic of the logo we started with. It had a bow tie and gold glitter. Bless my little heart. But you got to start somewhere. And I don't believe you need to belabor these things. You just need to kind of get it out the door. You'll tweak it as you go. A gorgeous, expensive looking website. Now, look, you definitely need a website, and you definitely need to look professional, and you definitely need it to look aesthetic, right? You need it to look pretty. But I know so many people that have come to me over the years for coaching who are like, well, I can't start unless I have $5,000 for a custom website. Friend, you don't. Put up a website with pictures that look like really good work. Make sure you spend time and attention about what you want to say on that website. Get it out the door, because you're going to change it within the first year, no matter what. You just will. Even if you're like, no, I won't, you will, because you yourself will change. The clients that you serve will, you'll get clarity on who you want to serve and what kind of weddings you want to do and what kind of events you want to do. And that, therefore, like, your lived experience will change what you want to market yourself as. So I wouldn't spend too much time there. Business cards, listen, when I started, like an actual letterpress business card was like the gold standard, and they're so pricey. That isn't the case anymore. I really think you just need an Instagram account, a TikTok account, a good website. And I actually don't even know that you need to print business cards, depending on your market. And now that I said Instagram and TikTok, I don't think you need a perfect looking feed. I hope that that has gone completely out the window. Again, back when I started, it was all about the perfect aesthetic and you needed everything to look a certain way. Now it needs to look authentic and people want to know who you are. Okay. So what I actually think you do need, though, and why we're here today, hopefully, you need to get better at your actual core wedding planning skills. You need systems, which is where Aisle Planner comes in. You need experience, which I call reps, like going to the gym, reps, and you need relationships. If you are not networking, networking is how I built my entire business, and networking in real life and also online, but relationships are everything. So my reality of year one, and something I've seen repeat for many people that I coach, is year one, you're going to have inconsistent income, right? Because you are still trying to figure out that marketing piece. You're still trying to figure out who you're selling to and how to sell in your market. Now, the reason I asked where so many of you are from is because all these different locations have different prime wedding markets, right? I'm in Los Angeles. We have beautiful weather almost year round. The only time we really don't do a tremendous amount of weddings are January and like August, because it rains and it's too hot. If you're in Arizona, your summertime is way too hot. So that's going to be your winter, so to speak. If you're on the East Coast, especially Northeast, you're probably not doing a ton of weddings November, December, January. So therefore, we need to figure out, and you each need to figure out, how you're going to create income in those months where you don't have income. Spoiler alert, it's you take payments. Everyone should be taking payments, okay? And also, the reality of year one, but also every year as a business owner, is that you are actually learning constantly. Every event you do, every consult call you do with a client, if you're paying attention, there's something to learn. In year one, you're likely doing everything yourself. I highly recommend, I might also just say, I insist that you never, ever, ever do a wedding by yourself, as in without an assistant, because you simply can't be in more than one place at a time. So make sure you're charging enough to at least have one person on your team. But the most important thing here is that you are building confidence one event at a time. This photo is from a wedding that I did in, gosh, it must have been 2014. I don't know if you can tell, I have a big sock bun in. That's how you can tell what year it was. This wedding was at an event at a venue in LA called the 1909. It's basically like built into the side of a hill, and it has like thousands of steps. My team told me they refused to work here after a couple of years. They were like, no more at this venue. And the reason I chose this photo, one, because look how young I look, but also because this was like a lesson learned, right? This venue was a big lesson for me, and listening to my team and having them be like, hey, whatever we get paid to work here, it's not enough. Like, this place is too much work for the average budget of clients who get married here. So over time, you will learn these things, right? Because sometimes it seems like a great opportunity. And then over time, that still great opportunity can actually turn. And then you can say, okay, that's a lesson learned. We're not going to work there anymore. So the three most common beginner mistakes that I see is a lot of times we spend money on the wrong things. And these days, a lot of that is tech tools, right? These days, there's a lot of shiny object syndrome about like, what do we need, right? Are we paying for ChatGPT? Are we paying for Claude? Are we paying for, Sarah and I just talked about this before we started, are we paying for Cvent and Prism? And are we paying for Timeline Genius? And what about, the list is literally endless, right? And so, especially as you're starting, for those of you who are here that are like, I haven't yet started, or I'm just like Maddie has her first wedding this weekend, okay? Really try to keep things streamlined as much as possible, because what I did at the beginning is I would be like, come up against a roadblock, like a tech block especially, and be like, just pay for it, let's get through it, I need it. Whereas when we're building a little more conscientiously, I think we can save ourselves our bottom line from really ballooning up. Waiting until you're ready to network. So this might be something that I was going to say is just me, but I doubt it's just me. I'm pretty extroverted, but when I thought about networking in the wedding industry, back in the day, it very much felt elite, right? It felt kind of like a mean girls club. It felt very high end and very closed door. And even though you could buy a ticket, right, I was very much aware that even though I bought a ticket, right, I might not be welcome. Now, over time, I think that that's kind of gone, that's softened a bit. I think we have a lot of networking groups that are aware that that's something that happens in our industry. But I would say, especially if you're new, please don't wait until you emotionally feel ready, because you're never going to really feel ready. I would recommend that you find a group that feels as welcoming as they can be, and then go. Make yourself go to these events, because listen, I know we're 6 years post-pandemic and so much of our work is done here online. However, the reason I built my business so quickly is because I used to joke and say I would attend the opening of an envelope. Someone was opening a venue, I was there. Someone was launching a new business, I was there. They were doing a fashion show, I was there. I was everywhere. And was it exhausting? Yeah, a little. But I made it my goal, my mission, to meet as many people as possible, because the more people see you at events, right, they start noticing that you're a person that shows up. And whether or not they've worked an event with you, they're like, oh, we can trust her. She's always around. She shows up and she's always the same person, right? She's friendly. She's consistent. She's here. As a matter of fact, many, many years later, I was speaking at Wedding MBA and I was being introduced by Clint Huff. He's a celebrity officiant. He did one of Britney Spears' weddings. Clint's great. He's in my market. I see him constantly at events. He and I have actually never worked together, though. I've never had the occasion to hire a celebrity officiant. However, when he stood on stage to introduce me, he said, she's one of my favorite wedding planners to work with. And I thought, because in his mind, there's no difference in seeing me at events, knowing me as a person, or having had worked with me. It was the same. And I thought, interesting, that's really the power of networking, right? Because in his mind, we're bonded enough that he feels like, well, of course we've worked together. I never told him. I love Clint too, Carol. Isn't he great? Clint's a good guy. So many of your clients, especially as a planner, are going to come at first through venues and photographers. So the more venue and photographer you can get in your inner circle, and I mean, like, I want you to be friends with these people, right? Like my favorite venues, I could text the venue manager right now and be like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, haven't heard from you. Are you good? I'm talking about making relationships with people, not transactional things where like, well, you do for me and I do for you. I'm talking about real relationships. And then the other mistake I see is people building a business with no systems. And by that, I mean keeping all of your methods in your brain, not writing them down. Do you see how mad I look in this photo? Do you see this mad face? This was at this was like a week-long wedding in Palm Springs. It was like a hybrid, like Southeast Asian / Indian wedding. And then like the bride was like a white girl from Chicago. This was one of the biggest events of my career. And you can see the tension in my jaw. We survived that one, you guys. We survived. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking like, what really is the difference between a professional planner and a hobby planner? And there are many things, but these I think are the most important things to talk about. When you're a hobby planner, I think you're still sort of just hoping someone finds you. You're hoping someone finds you, and you're hoping someone asks you, oh, hey, don't you do a little planning? Like, oh, so-and-so said that you do a little planning, right? Whereas if you're a professional planner, you actually have to have a process for getting leads in, getting them through your system, and getting them to sign a contract. It's actually the biggest mindset shift between hobby and professional, is that when you're a hobby, it's like everything's kind of verbal and you're like in it and you're vibing. Professional is like, we need a detailed process. But actually doing this job, the biggest difference I see between a hobby planner and a professional is that when you're a hobby planner, you're largely reacting to things that happen and fixing things. Whereas when you're a professional, you can see 6 steps down the line to see, oh, this thing that happened now is going to be a problem in 2 hours. Let's just fix it now. You're leading instead of reacting, right? What we're hoping for is every professional planner is the leader of the wedding, the leader of the vendors, the leader of the client, and you're gently guiding them through the day. But also you have that foresight vision to say, yeah, okay, later in the day, that's going to be a problem. And that just comes with experience. A hobby planner largely relies on memory. And I just mean repeatable task memory, right? But a professional will have systems. And again, that's where IO Planner comes in. Professional as we mentioned earlier, does price for profit in order to have assistants there in order to make a sustainable living. And a hobby planner does favors, works for exposure. You will never catch me working for exposure. I never have and I never will. Exposure does not pay my mortgage. And I believe in paying people for what they do. Now, does that mean you should never do anything for exposure? Maybe not. I don't know. An actual full wedding for exposure is way too much work for nothing, right? But a styled shoot, an industry event, a venue event where they're inviting other, fellow vendors. Like I have done those for free / exposure, and those have worked out in my favor. But a full wedding, especially as you're just getting started, please make sure you're being paid something, even if it's just $600 paid to you over Starbucks table in an envelope, right? Because then at least everyone has buy-in to that, okay? Some things I think that are worth investing in. Now, we can talk about investing as far as time, but also energy, but also money, right? Education, number one. Being here today, amazing. I also want to just give a shout out to Wedding MBA. It is a conference that we go to every year. IO Planner is always there. I've been speaking there for 9 years. It's a really low ticket for our conference. It's less than $300 for the entire conference ticket. Of course, you have to get to Vegas and you have to, pay for your hotel. But as far as industry education, it is a huge variety of speakers. There's like 150 speakers. The expo floor is huge and wild. It is the biggest event in our industry. And I highly recommend everyone go at least once. If you've been in business for a while, you might think that you're beyond it, and that might be true. But you also might be able to go there and network with the fellow vendors and with your fellow tech and other businesses that support our industry, and go to the parties. And who knows, you might learn one or two things. But if you're new, get yourself to Wedding MBA. Get yourself to Wedding MBA because there is so much there. And then also experience. Now, listen. I know in some markets, there are very fancy planners who will charge for the privilege of assisting them. That's going to be up to you if it's something you can afford to do both financially and with your time. I never charged anyone to assist me. I think that's ethically not great. I don't love it, but I understand that if you feel like there's no other way or that's a shortcut you might want to take. But the actual experience of doing an event, you cannot replicate it. What I'd prefer you to do, especially if you're new, is reach out in your market to those seasoned planners and ask if they simply need help, right? Do they need help in the office? Do they need help on a wedding day? I would let people shadow me. I've had many people shadow my events over the years who at the end of the day say, I could never do this job. And I'm like, great, now you know, right? And I've had a couple that were like, I really want to work with you. I had someone who was a guest at one of my weddings email me the next day saying, I don't know you, but I'm friends with the bride and I think I want to work with you. And I was like, well, let's go get coffee. And to this day, Kelsey is one of my assistants, like in my life, my assistant. Like Kelsey's amazing. And she came to me because she was like, I was watching you. And I was like, I get it. But the experience of doing it, I would much prefer you make a network with other newer wedding planners and decide that you're going to assist one another for bartering than pay someone for the experience of working with them, frankly. I had a mentor when I began. Her name was Allison Howard. She used to do luxury weddings in San Diego. And for a summer, I was her assistant. She paid me. I did not pay her for the privilege. And I learned a lot that summer. You know what I learned a lot? That the weddings she was doing in that $1 million range didn't require a hell of a lot of work on the day because all the work is done ahead of time. So I was like, she's kind of paying me to stand around. But there were very specific things that she didn't do that I wanted to do, or that I noticed she didn't do that I was like, lesson learned. As a point of example, Allison never cared about how the bridesmaids held their bouquets. They would hold them like here, and she never said a word. And I'm a micromanager. I would tell them at the rehearsal, like, ladies, please hold your bouquets down. And if you pass me, I'm going to push them down as you walk past me because you're going to like those photos later. Allison didn't care about it at all. And that was her preference. But I learned by working for her that my preference was, that's a moment in time that I'm going to manage. And my clients have always been happy that I have. So you cannot account for experience. And then, of course, software. Of course, I've been with the IO Planner since 2015. I'm a very happy customer, but you need a receptacle, right? For all of the ideas your clients have and you have, you also need one common point of truth, right? For your team, for you, for your clients. I have found IO Planner such a real bonus and a gift because I have tailored it, and you all should tailor your IO Planner if you're using it, to the way you do your work. so that when I bring on someone new to my team, I don't really have to explain to them, well, we work in 3 phases and these are the phases, because if they read Aisle Planner, they can clearly see it's right there. Whatever software you choose, make time in your life, in your business, to devote time to you learning how to use it to its fullest. And it will take a little bit of time for sure. But that sort of time is such a beautiful investment in the future of your business. And then, as we said, relationships. There's no discounting relationships. You need these relationships. You need relationships with other planners. You really do. You need relationships with every other vendor. When I started, I didn't really understand. I used to think that it was like kind of silly how some of like the more established planners would only work with the same people over and over. But over time, I got it too, because these days are so important and we need to work with people we trust. But I just want to say this, nothing replaces you doing this work. You shadowing someone is very, very different than getting in there and just doing the entire process. You learn by planning, which is why between my first year and my second year, I went from 8 weddings to 35 weddings, because I was like, I need more reps. Do I recommend that many? I do not. But I do recommend you getting to work, getting the work in, okay? I do not think software is optional. I do not think a Google Doc is good enough. Your business will live inside your systems long after you are active, doing every single wedding. You need these systems. This is on the right, a list of all the things I use Aisle Planner for. These are all things, whether you're using Aisle Planner or not, these are things you need. So if you have a software that has all these things, great, because otherwise you're going to be building these from scratch. And that's a huge bummer. And also, I will say this, having software, when you're meeting potential clients, it really helps them feel comfortable with you, because they're like, well, if you've invested in the software, then we can invest in you because we have a common way we work together. Okay. I will answer all these questions at the end, I promise. I want to take a moment for visibility, because I'm a visibility and confidence coach. Visibility versus credibility. As a planner, you 100% are going to need them both. But I believe that there is no credibility without visibility, because people need to know you exist in order for them to trust you. So if you are building, or if you're in a place in your business where you've been doing this forever, but it's stagnant, what's likely happening is that you have a lack of visibility, okay? So we need to make a marketing plan for anyone. Everyone needs a marketing plan. First thing I need you to do is show your face. The common thing used to be, well, let's show couples, let's show happy couples. And yes, sure. But in the absence of having happy couples, you need to show yourself. And then you need to share your work, okay? In video form, in photo form, in blog form, in mood boards. If you don't have any work to show, create a client, create an event, make a mood board for it and share that. And then build those local relationships with rental companies, with venues, with floral, anyone who has a space that you could go decorate or plan. Even if you don't consider yourself a decorator, setting a table, that's a planner's job. You can set a good table, then you have work to share. And then with your marketing, we have to stay consistent. I don't care about going viral, but I do care about you consistently showing up online, because it's much like I said about showing up in person for networking, right? When people see you often on their feed, they trust you. Building your portfolio, I just gave you one example of like going to a rental company and saying, hey, can I do a 4th of July themed table here? They might say yes. And then if they say yes, then you have content to share. Real weddings are always going to be paramount, right? But if you, in the absence of real weddings, do a styled shoot, because that is also a kind of planning that you will have to learn how to do at some point. And they both have value, but obviously, and just for the record, not the same thing and cannot be marketed as the same thing. A styled shoot should never be marketed as a real wedding. That is a recipe for hurt down the line. And then a moment on relationships. I'm going to say this till the cows come home, until I'm 90 years old, but the fastest way to grow is to make friends with fellow vendors, with venues, specifically venues that you want to work in. Get to know those venues like the back of your hand. So then when someone inquires, they say, have you worked at the eBell? You can say, well, I haven't yet, but I know it very well. Or if you have, be like, that's my favorite venue in town. I basically live there. Industry organizations, find the friendly ones and commit to going. And then local networking with other people, right? Other people. Tell everyone, hey, I'm a wedding planner now. Hey, I just opened a wedding planning business. And it's not just weddings at first, right? You're open to doing baby showers, bridal showers. You know what I got a lot of experience doing when I first started, and I didn't talk about it a lot. I did a lot of celebrations of life. I did a lot of non-denominational memorials, and it paid the bills, it kept the lights on, and it kept me emotionally tied into that community. Because guess what? Those people know people that are getting married. And they're like, oh my God, we loved Renee doing grandma's memorial. Let's see if she can do our wedding. 100% I can. The thing is that people refer people they trust. So whether you're showing up in networking in person or you're showing up online, once they feel like they can trust you because you're consistent and you're always the same, then they're like, oh, I know someone for you. Especially when you're starting out and you're not charging a premium price, right? Like what we have to start asking ourselves, for those of you who have not started, is not just how do I become a planner, but how do I become a professional, right? Because there are many people who throw up a website and say like, okay, and now I'm a planner, and they're not taking it as seriously as one would hope, right? I love this photo. This was a bride. It was a Christmas wedding. She wore a green dress and the entire top of her dress was falling off. So I taped it to her. And the photographer got this photo. I tried to stay out of the photos, but I thought this was a fun one just to say. And then this is me holding a baby goat at a wedding in Joshua Tree where we had baby goats for the cocktail hour. Once in a lifetime. It's never going to happen again. We are running out of time together. Here's what I want to encourage you all to do. Your very next step this week, right? Go learn something new about wedding planning. Go to YouTube, go to TikTok, find the planners who are putting out educational content, dive in. One of our good friends runs a program called the Wedding Summit Series, and she's always releasing something new, something exciting, there's always something free. Go find Wedding Summit Series and then go meet someone and tell them, hey, I'm looking to plan 5 more weddings next year. Tell people what you need, especially your fellow vendors. Tell your fellow vendors, hey, I'm a little light next year, or hey, I'm just starting out. I really want to do a wedding this fall. Because you will be in their mind. And like my friend Liz, when someone inquired and said, hey, are you busy on Saturday? I am, but Renee's not. Of course I wasn't. I had just launched a website. Improve a system. If you're with IO Planner, dive into one of the features, really learn how to use it, and then get experience any way you can. Any way you can. There are so many Facebook groups in every market of wedding planners looking for assistance. Get into them and start meeting those people. Because the truth is, and we all know this to be true, but it begs reminding, that small actions repeated is what makes a career. That is just what I've always found to be true and continues to be true for my current career. And then this is me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Renée Dalo. On TikTok, I'm the Renée Dalo. My website is that. And if you click on that QR code, I have been writing a book about wedding planning. It's coming out this year, I promise. It's the thing about like, how do you take 13 years of experience and put it into a book? That's a wait list for the book. So you'll be notified when it comes out. And this Show Up Anyway is my new podcast, which launches next week, all about visibility and confidence. So that's where you can find me, out on the wild internet. But let's answer. Do we have time to answer some questions, Sarah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. Networking was crucial. 99% of my clients come from word of mouth. Yes, Tanya, that was true for me as well. Especially once you start planning, your clients generally of marrying age know people that are also getting married, right? So if they love you, they're going to tell people. And if they don't, they're going to tell people too. So we always want to be top of word of mouth. I also used to do a pretty hefty offboarding sequence. So I know we talk a lot about onboarding our clients, right? A lot of like, oh, get them up to speed. You also need to offboard them, right? You need to take them from their beautiful wedding day with their highs, they're high on emotion. And then you need to get them into a review, and you need to get them into a system where they're going to tell other people organically about you. And so we can't just leave them at the wedding day. We can't just drop them like a hot potato and be like, see you never. We have to continue to nurture that relationship. And there's many ways you can do that. On your Instagram, you can send holiday cards, you can send anniversary cards, if they have children in the future, gifts for that, like really keeping them as part of your wedding planning family. Like that is a good way to continue that word of mouth networking within your clients. Corey asks, at what point does it make the most sense to invest in a mentor? I've worked under other planners for years and learned so much, but that experience isn't translating into behind the scenes process building, nailing intro calls with potential clients. Yeah, I think, Corey, this would be the time then to invest in someone who can sort of take everything that you already do and distill it down into a system, maybe give you like a phase-based system so that you can teach it to other people. And then you can also have peace of mind that you're not missing anything. Because I think that's what happens to some of us midstream career. We're like, it's all in my head. Am I doing it all? And it's like, most of the time you are, but probably 10% of the time you're forgetting to do something. I know I'm guilty of that as well. One of the things that I did with my IO planner is we have a public checklist for the client, and then we have a private checklist for my team and for me. And that was really a helpful piece of mind to just get it down on paper. I'm a little neurospicy. If you're with me, put it in the chat. So a lot of times things just live in my brain, or I think like that's common sense, but getting them down on paper is definitely a way. And Corey, I think that's a great thing to work on with a mentor.
And I think also like that, this is about investing in your company, right? So there are things that mentors or a VA or someone of that capacity. So when you're talking about processes and like actually building the behind the scenes, the SOPs, that may be something where you're actually looking to like engage with a VA as opposed to, or a business coach, as opposed to a quote unquote mentor. Sure. But they can do things so much faster. So even though, yes, you are investing in that time that you are asking them for, you're investing in whatever that cost is, they can do what would take you months of pulling out your hair, they can do very quickly, and then they can teach you the process, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes looking at the cost factor isn't just monetary, it's also your time, right? And our time is expensive. Like every single person on here, I'm sure you have a number in your head as to how much your time is worth per hour, right? Think of that too. How long is this going to take you to do? 100%. And then would it be actually more advantageous to pay someone else and then come in and get them to teach you and finesse it to be your perfect process? And your process is always changing.
100% always changing. Yeah. I also think too, since we're here, we'll talk about it, like the difference between like a mentor and a coach and a consultant. And a mentor is really someone who is like, if that is someone whose business you really want to emulate, like that's what a mentor does. Like the mentor is saying, do it like I did, right? A coach is saying, let me learn about you and let's figure out how to do it best for you. A consultant is going to say, hey, here as a business strategy, this is what we can do. And like they consult into your business, but they don't really get to know you. So those are like, I know it's very tricky and it's like, those all mean the same thing. They actually don't. Corey, if you care about that, just DM me and I can explain it more. What do I keep in my waist pouches? Okay, so this photo is from 2017, maybe. This is a now defunct company called Toddy Belt. I was obsessed with my Toddy Belt because that big pouch was an iPad back in the day when the iPad was big, because I was trying to be a no waste paper girly. So I was an early iPad adopter. So that was what was in there. In the side closest to the camera, there is a pocket for a walkie-talkie that I honestly didn't use that much. That pocket had a scissor in it. You probably can't see. A bunch of pens, like Advil, breath mints, all the things, tissues. But the big pocket was for the iPad. So that's what that was. R.I.P. Toddy Belt. I loved that Toddy Belt. I was like, when they went out of business, I was like the only one who like really complained about it. They were like, Renee, you're the only one who, I was like, okay, well, make sure to clients tag you as collabs. Yeah, here's my advice about that, because my business now is largely social media. Invite them all to tag you as a collaborator. Also explain to them that maybe you can't accept every single thing that they tag you in. Some people who are real video, they're very prolific on video are going to tag you in things that you might not want on your feed. And if that's the case, you can not accept the collab, or you can accept the collab and then hide it from your main feed. And that might be the best way to do it without like hurting anyone's feelings. But yeah, get them definitely to in the habit of adding you as a collab. And for every planner here who's making a timeline, all of your vendors' social handles should be at the bottom of your timelines. On the bottom of every IO Planner timeline, you can add like an open field. And in every single timeline for a decade now, they have been the Instagram handles of every single vendor. And then I take that list and I text it to all the vendors in the morning. And then your clients also have access, of course, to their timeline so they can see all the handles as well. Random question. Thoughts on investing in nice headshots, self-content, so we can market ourselves better? Yeah, Natalia, you need it. I mean, I've been doing yearly headshot sessions for as long as I've had a business. There isn't a point in time right now where people don't want to see your face. And so if a professional headshot session or lifestyle session, right, where you're like on the computer, setting a table, all that stuff, like if that's going to make you more happy to share your photos, then you absolutely have to do that. How do you best communicate with the vendor team and our team members on a wedding day? Is there an app you recommend? I like Voxer, Voxer, Voxer. It's like a walkie-talkie app. The only downside to Voxer is that if you have the app open and someone Voxers you and your phone volume is up, it goes like, and so like you always have to have an AirPod in. I love Voxer for that. Most of the time, depends on if we're in a venue that's real spacious, we're renting headsets because I live in Los Angeles. So we have like access to like movie studio walkie-talkies, like the really good ones. So we'll do that. That's on occasion, right? But if we're in like an urban environment where there's plenty of cell service, we're using Voxer. And it's a free app. There is a pro version you can get, but it's mostly free. Yeah. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
No. All right.
We're done.
Looks like we're good. Well, thank you everyone who joined us live today. Thank you, Renee, for sharing all of that insight. Yeah, guys, I think that, when you're thinking about your business, it's a business, right? You need to think like a CEO. Think like someone who is trying to run a business. And the more processes you can put in place, the more systems that you come to the table with, the more time you get back in your day to continue to invest in your business, to continue to grow your business, or to just give yourself more personal time, right? Like the goal is to be able to have your business. It should be able to operate without you having to be a part of every single aspect of the business. If that is the case, you will never be able to grow. You'll never be able to breach that threshold of going from, kind of a small business to someone who's really making a living and standing in their business.
And I'd say if it feels daunting, right? Because it did to me when I was starting to be like, oh, I have to document. Just start very small. Like if you have a night or a weekend, or you're like, let me work on my business, not in my business. Just sit down with a Google Doc or whatever, and just say like, okay, what is my inquiry process? Where are they finding me in the world? And then what happens after they find me? And just write it step by step. And then that's it. And then the next time you go back in, be like, oh, what is my onboarding process? What happens once I book? And just do that. You don't have to like do every system at once. In fact, it's never going to get done that way. You have to sort of do it in these small little process. And then once you're doing these small little pockets, you'll start realizing like, oh, I never thought about it like a client. Like if they do find me on Instagram and I'm like, okay, fill out this contact form, like they might want to fill out the contact form. Like how else can I get them? And you'll start thinking more deeply about the things that you've maybe taken for granted, or in the case of someone who's brand new, don't have a process for at all. Mm-hmm. And you really, there is no, I know we have ChatGPT now, but there really is no replacement for just like thinking your way through it. If you're someone who does use AI, I use Chat, I pay for the pro Chat. Like I would take these notes that I'm making and then give it to Chat and be like, where are the holes here, right? Where do you see if I were a client, there would be a sense of tension. Like, and for those of you who are here, who've been in business a while, if something is stagnating in your business, that's another way you could sort of take that to Chat and be like, hey, I've gotten this many inquiries this year. I've booked this many times from those inquiries. Where's the disconnect? Like, what are we missing? Because sometimes it can be that outside voice. And sometimes it gets things wrong. But sometimes it can be that thing that kind of gets you thinking about it in a different way.
Agreed, 100%. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Renee. It was an absolute pleasure having you today. Thank you to everybody. Again, feel free to follow Renee. She amazing content, always putting out amazing content. And definitely keep your eyes peeled. We're going to be doing quite a bit of these webinars. These are about education, right? These are outside. These are built for the community to continue to learn, continue to grow, talk about things that really matter to pros in this industry, to continue to drive success. So thank you guys so much. And I hope everyone has a great week and end of May.
Yay. Bye, everyone.